right, here we are. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another session or installation of Doc Talk. Today I'm very pleased to have Ron Holland joining us today to talk all things about boat and his career in the boating world. The other thing I was realizing reading your book, I was like, how do you have so many designs competing in one race at one time and not feel like you have favorites? It's almost like they're extension of yourself. And I was thinking, and that doesn't, I mean, it happened all the time, so you're used to it, but to someone else, it seems like we'd be all into one thing. But again, like Elon Musk, he's got multiple spaceships that are being built in parallel, and like eventually he's learning, throwing one away, going on. Like you had constantly multiple boats in one race. How did your team, how do you not play favorites? They're all your clients, they're all important. How do you balance all of those competing vessels trying to win the race?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeff. And surprisingly, that's the first time I've ever been asked this publicly. And I've got a great story about it.
Okay, go ahead, hit me. Because I was wondering, it seems like they're all your children, and how do you not love them equally?
This is a good one. So there was a evolutionary theme going with the designs. And when Dave Allen commissioned IMP, and this was with the San Francisco team I'm with, so these guys are not messing around. They want a serious boat. And Dave said, I don't want one of those boats you're doing now. I want something different. I want to be able to go upwind like the boats you're doing, but I also want to go downwind like Improbable. So I had to totally rethink. And in the context of the IOR handicap measurement system. So it was an attempt to make an IOR racing yacht faster downwind. And you were absolutely right. The boat before IMP was to a client that made a big effort, and it's the best shot I could do. And this is for the Southern Ocean Racing Circuit in Florida, the big annual regatta. So the boat that's the last one in that first evolution of boats, I'm committed to sail on. And then we did IMP. And IMP was rushed through the building process to be in the same regatta. And exactly as you predict, the owner of the boat I'm on went, why does that guy look so different than me? And it's kind of hard to explain. What do you tell the guy? I'm sailing with you. We're gonna win races anyway. That's an experiment that I'm doing because the client asked for it. Well, so the first race we do is out of St. Petersburg. And it's a 120-mile run and then windward back to the start. And as we go out of Tampa Bay, IMP sails away from all the other boats, including my latest boat. And the owner looks at me and says, Ron, why is that guy so much faster? And I remember saying, wait till we turn the corner at the bottom mark and come back. We're more upwind oriented, they're more downwind oriented. Well, he was kind of not very happy, but accepted it. And we get down to the leeward mark. It's dark, so we can't see how far IMP is ahead, but we know she's ahead. Well, then we come back upwind and we get daylight and we see him still pretty far ahead of us. And my client's going, hey, remember what you said about going upwind faster? How are we going to catch these guys? Well, imp sailed away upwind. So they were faster downwind and upwind. And I went, oh, God. My client was not very happy with me.
Yeah.
Because I'm thrilled to see him doing so well, but I got to pretend I'm upset.
The one thing, looking at all your designs and your clients, I was trying to balance how much were you dreaming and having your clients fulfill your dreams of innovation on design versus having your clients influence the design. It seems to be obviously a part of each, depending on the owners. Some of them seem to be really involved in pushing the boundaries or stipulating certain requirements. Like, I think it was one of the boats, it was 4-man crew only. All the winches had to be hydraulic. So you're being constrained by the owners and putting these incredible bars. But how much of that was pushed by them versus you wanting to also push the envelope and having them endorse your drive to keep making things different, better? Like,
with the race boats, the owners are just kind of trusting that we're going to come up with something better. With the bigger, the design, my design business changed, and the boats got bigger and more complex, but they weren't racing boats. The owners of those boats were very influential. The owners of the racing yachts kind of gave us a free hand, and Imp was so good because Dave Allen gave us a free hand in an aggressive way. He instructed me, I don't want one of those boats you're doing for everyone else. I want something different. So he gave a freedom that the other guys in this time period wouldn't give, because they want boats to just beat the last boat you did. Dave wanted something that was totally different.
Yeah, that's interesting. The envelope being pushed now, obviously, naturally, you're not going to always make the next racehorse. You're going to have some that are going to win, some that aren't going to win. There's all these challenges on production. That's an interesting situation to be in, especially to build those boats and then have those owners come on board and seeing, okay, what dreams are we gonna make possible here? Because certainly some of those races, I mean, they were not winning every race, but they were up there in the contention. Like they were competitive enough that the owners were excited about what they had done. It sounds like, reading the book.
Yeah, and we did lots of boats. This was a very interesting period in the international yacht racing. So this is 1980, 79, 80. 79 was the rough fasted race.
Great chapters, by the way.
It's a big story. So in 78, this is a good story from a general view of the subject we're covering. Admiral's Cup was the world championship of IOR racing yachts. And most of my design effort was focused on this area. In 1978, there were over 100 new yachts building around the world, trying to qualify for the 3-boat team in their country to come to the Admiral's Cup. The over 100 boats were designed by 3 designers. Imagine 100 boats a year, 1 year building to target this race. And it was approximately like Doug Peterson had the opportunity to do 40 boats. I had the opportunity to do 30, and Herman Freyers had the opportunity to do 25 or 30. I mean, that never happened before, and it's never happened since. That you're going to get a chance, 100 chances to do U-boats for a particular regatta. But that was so. That's the height. I did my quarter tonner and won the quarter ton cup in 1973, and in 1979 there was that period was this racing period, and then the world got richer, and the guys that had the little race boats wanted more comfort, and they could afford it. So in the early 1980s, the boats started getting bigger, and I'm selling the performance of my race boats with the desired comfort.
Where did you find I want to talk later about how influential, obviously, it sounds like it's almost like you were helping your clients, but it also sounds like as you got to know your clients, they were helping you too. It sounds like you were inspired by them on different levels. They seem to have made an impact on you. But in light of that context of dealing with all these people that are successful in their own right, pushing the boundaries, they're competitive, they're willing to take chances, where did you find the creative juices? It's almost like, to me, it's almost like imagining being a singer-songwriter. Where did you find, and you talk about music a lot in your book, and how, you remember one of your stories was losing your LP connection, like how important that was. And I'm thinking, where did you find that moment to slow down and dream different? Like, how did you put yourself in the mind space to break your own boundaries? What was that like? Was it like walking, like at night? Where do those inspiration, those ideas sort of come to you? How did you make them? Because you were constantly being pushed to make things better.
Yeah, I mean, the clients are hugely influential, even if they don't realize it. Because my goal, I'm not selling a kind of Ron Holland philosophy. I believe I'm listening to the client, and I'm trying to give him what he's describing, even if he's not describing it very well. So the whole yacht design thing, following the racing boats, was all about client influence. With the race boats, it was too technical, if you like, for the client to really understand, except sweeping statements like, Dave Allen, give me something different.
So brush strokes. And so around the table, I mean, I guess you're just brainstorming. You're just pushing the boundaries where you didn't think I guess it sounds like you're constantly learning and not too scared of failing, because you do talk about in your book about, like Mr. Tanaka, all on the production side. I mean, again, the builder there, the mast, but that must still, even if it's not your fault, you're still going through and you're learning about the, spars or the rudder. As you push the boundary, you've got to deal with failure. So how was that for you, dealing failure and learning from it? It didn't seem like it didn't stop you from still trying. Like you always got back and kept going. How did you deal with failure publicly? Because your designs are out there in race environments, pushing the boundaries. That to me was also another lesson, is that you seem to be willing to take chances and learn from them.
Yeah, and the biggest example, I think, was in 1979, and all the carbon fiber rudders breaking.
Oh yeah, during the Fastnet race you're talking about?
So and before, like I did a boat for the Prime Minister of England, Morning Cloud. He should have been in the British Admiral's Cup team, but the rudder broke in one of the preliminary races. So, hey, it's pretty high profile. You got Edward, he's not in the trials for the Admiral's Cup because Ron Holland's carbon fiber rudder broke. Oh, you can't have much higher profile than that.
No.
You could have a bit higher profile, like Simon Le Bon's drum keel falling off, that was pretty high profile. So now the rudder, the carbon fiber rudder multiple failure could have been the end of my racing career. But my clients were sympathetic with me pushing the boundaries. So they were kind of a little bit responsible too. You know, they kind of were saying, oh, we're going to do a new race boat. What do you need? You need carbon fiber rudder. You know, 15% of the weight of a steel and fiberglass rudder. So none of them, now a couple of them didn't come back to me for their next race boat, but most did come back because they understood, like you're suggesting, we're pushing the boundaries and there are risks.
You must have, I mean, internally process what happened, but you probably didn't dwell too much on it beyond the lessons learned. I mean, otherwise you would just, you could mope in your own sort of sadness and go, well, it happened, it happened. It sounds like you would learn from it and then move on. You didn't, it didn't stop you from pushing the boundaries, it sounds like.
No, but we, you know, we fixed it. Everyone in the industry learned how to do race boats with carbon fiber rudders, and it's normal now.
Yeah.
So long as it's a bit like the music business, you know, if you're not in the top 10 for long enough, you're out of the business. So the race, when I consciously decided to follow these big boats and leave the racing field, there was a bit of relief, actually, because the pressure of needing to win the next race was, I lived with it.
And the production side too. I mean, it's not just the design, it's then the production and then the logistics, it sounds like, for yacht delivery. You know, like it's layers upon layers. It's even if you had 10 years, it would be too much. But then you had to do it all in a short timeline, crazy production, crazy logistics to make the race. Like, all these owners don't settle, like you say. I mean, they're driven. They don't take no, or they're good at maybe motivating others to achieve things that otherwise would seem impossible, is the way that I was reading a lot of the chapters. Like you've got all these challenges on top of, it's just, even the delivery of the boats was crazy. Getting the boats to the races, getting them prepared, getting them ready. No real shakedown cruises, or the first shakedown cruise is a race.
Jeff, you've triggered something new in the way I would present this. This is not something I have on my agenda for talks. What you just described, years later, I had a stroke. So I would have said, before I had the stroke, I would have said, well, hey, tell us about your life. I go, well, I'm doing boats, you know, it's an easy life. After the stroke, I look back and I go, bloody hell, that was pressure, as you were describing. But see, I would never have predicted this is so tough a job, I'm going to have a stroke. Never gave it a second thought. But when I reflect on it, you know, one of the most difficult things was the travel. We traveled every week because it was that kind of relationship with the builder, the owner. It's been, the last couple of years have been pretty interesting. No travel, and we're surviving. But your view of the complexity of this period is valid. We were really pushing the limit of my health.
And everyone, I think. I mean, it sounded like everyone was going above board. You remember when that the rudder broke, and then it was built overnight. You know, they sailed, I can't remember, they took a plane to, was it Jamaica? I can't remember what the island was, gave them the rudder, they kept going. And you're like, this is all happening. I mean, it just seems like everyone is, it's almost like not war, but it's high alert. It's like you need to respond not in days, but sometimes in hours and minutes. There's a huge time crunch to all of this to meet the timelines or the schedules of the races, which adds a whole other level of stress to what everyone was doing. That seemed pretty hard. I can see how that would take a toll on everyone. Let's talk about, on a lighter side, it sounds like your passion, and you talk about this also in the book, on flying. And it's amazing how many airline pilots we get to meet that are boaters. There's obviously a lot of parallels between flying, and the thrills that come from flying, the navigation challenges, just trusting your systems. There's a lot of parallels. And then you got into flying too, it sounds like, in a big way. How important was flying in your career as contrast to racing or boating?
It's not such an influence. So, for instance, if you were a yacht designer, not an enthusiast about flying, you can still design good boats. But it's something that I like, the voyaging aspect of flying. It's like getting from A to B, how to do that. It's a bit like taking a yacht across the ocean, yeah. So that's been very enjoyable. And I've been lucky because many of my clients have aeroplanes. And so I've been exposed to it more than most people would be.
Yeah, some interesting airplanes too. When you were so you were flying mainly as a means to stay in touch with all your clients everywhere, it sounds like, and I guess you were lucky to be based in Europe.
Well, there was a big change when cheap flights became an influence on the whole airline industry. So prior to that, you could kind of justify a airplane influence, but when Ryanair came on the European scene, and you could get to Spain for $10 or something, well, that was the end of justifying flying with a business context.